Here we have Mr. Max Groemping. He is a PhD candidate from University of Sydney and also research assistant for Electoral Integriy. Max, could you please tell us about your current work or project that you do in Electoral Integriy?
Yes, sure, pleasure. Thanks for having me, first of all. So for the Electoral Integrity Project, I am involved with administering the Perceptions of Electoral Integrity Expert Survey, which is our main data product and the main research that we do. It's a survey of election experts. Currently we have around about 2,200 experts in our expert roster, and after every election we send them a survey invitation to ask them about what they think about the integrity of the election. So that means the integrity of the election means the whole electoral cycle, starting with the electoral laws, how boundaries are drawn, how the campaign works, how media report, how financing political parties works, and then of course the vote and the count. And so for each of these 11 steps, we ask the experts a question, and we survey around about 40 of them for each election. And after that, we compile the results into an overall score between 0 and 100. And so far we have covered, if I'm not mistaken, about 220 elections in more than 150 countries. And we will continue this from now on for every election.
So this is election globally, and then you are continuously releasing the report after every election, or periodically after several months?
So we have essentially two release dates every year. So the first, more important one is in March, where we release our annual report. It's called the Year in Elections, and so far we have had 3 of them since 2013. And in this report we publish the results of the previous year. So not after every election, but once in the beginning of the year. And then in about August or September we publish an update with the elections that have happened from January to July. So actually, I think when this interview is airing, we should have just released the what we call PEI 4.5 update, which covers all elections from January to July 2016. And you can get the reports on our website, electoralintegrityproject.com.
So our next question is about if you can tell us about the highlight of this current updates on this month or September report.
Okay. I have not, I have to admit, I have not looked intimately into the results of this update, but we do have some quite interesting elections also that have happened in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So, I mean, recent elections that already happened last year were Myanmar and Singapore, of course.
And you have Philippines.
And the Philippines as well. And then for the first half, we also had the Laos People's Democratic Republic and Vietnam, which a lot of people ask us, why do you cover countries that have a one-party regime? And our argument about electoral integrity is that integrity is not only about the choice of party or the choice of candidate. So we do cover Cuba, we do cover Laos, etc. Because there are many other aspects about elections. You know, there are many technical aspects even about elections, from the voter registry to how the balloting is organized. So an election can go wrong at any of these stages, and even in a country where candidates come from one party, some other of these stages can work very well. And yeah, I just would like to come back to the Singapore and Myanmar elections perhaps, which was quite a surprise because both of them had essentially the same score in the Perceptions of Electoral Integrity Index. So this is the overall index that we produce at the end. And it was a bit of a surprise that the experts evaluated these two elections in a similar way. But when we zoom into the indicators around the electoral cycle, we see that in Myanmar, some of the technical aspects performed rather poorly because the country's infrastructure is struggling. There are many challenges. It's dispersed. There's violent conflict. On the other hand, the performance of the electoral authorities was evaluated rather well. And on the other hand, Singapore's elections were technically perfect. No waiting times, the vote count perfect, the registry, yes. However, the experts that we surveyed saw that there were problems with the electoral boundaries and some problems in the electoral laws that may have benefited one party over the other. So in the end, although the problems were in different aspects, overall the election seemed to have had the same integrity according to the experts. So this is not our opinion, it's the opinion of the experts that we surveyed.
In one of the indicators, do you have any concern about the access of freedom of information?
So one of the sub-dimensions of electoral integrity concerns the media dimension, and currently there is no survey item immediately asking about freedom of information, which is quite a specific instrument for ensuring transparency. But we do ask questions about how TV news, how print news, and how journalists in general report on the election. So this is another aspect of transparency that is captured in the index.
So according to your research, do you have any specific concern regarding the freedom of information on the election field in Asia specifically?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. My own research in my PhD that I'm currently doing at Sydney is concerned with how citizen observation groups try to increase transparency of the election, and I suppose open data and freedom of information is one of the instruments that a lot of groups are using. And this is not only specific to Southeast Asia. Of course, we know about the crowdsourced quick count in the Indonesian election 2014, which was very prominent, but similar instruments have been used in Honduras, El Salvador, if I'm not mistaken. I came across a similar open data initiative in New Zealand, which was done by a newspaper, actually, not an NGO, but a newspaper, and they asked their readers to verify the campaign finance return sheets that political parties need to fill out. So it was similar to the crowdsourced quick count, but not about election results, rather about transparency of campaign finance. So I see that this is and I should say this was only possible because by law these returns have to be open. So I see open data as the enabling minimal condition for citizen engagement and transparency. If you don't have open data, none of these initiatives would have been possible. So, okay, open data is a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition for this kind of transparency to happen. What you also need is a mobilization, so for instance by the media or by citizen groups, to come up with clever ways and design clever platforms to make use of this open data. And the most common one, I guess, is crowdsourcing approach, because once you have open data, it is quite possible that this data becomes overwhelming. So if you have 400,000 result sheets, nobody by themselves can really look through all of them. So that's why you need the wisdom of the crowd. You need to scale it up and just invite lots and lots of people to help you in the effort.
So for open data, it needs enabling environment. You mentioned first you need mobilization, and then do you think regulation also play an important role like this?
I wouldn't say I know very much about the regulation of open data, but certainly a Freedom of Information Act is, I think, a very basic condition of that. There are still a lot of countries who don't have that. So citizens don't have the right to get the information. But I think it is an important factor in transparency, again, as an enabling condition, as you call it, as a very basic necessity. You have to have this freedom of information. Or if there is no freedom of information, it's still possible that some, for instance, electoral authorities by themselves want to be more transparent. So it's even possible where there is no Freedom of Information Act. So you can have these state actors who want to be transparent. So that's very good. But I believe the regulation that makes it compulsory is obviously much stronger.
You know the case study of that situation that might occur perhaps in research?
You mean where
there's no regulation on the access of information, freedom of information, but the EMB still uses for information?
not necessarily in the not really in the field of freedom of information. I would have to think about it for a second, but there are examples of EMBs, election management bodies, who are more willing to cooperate with the NGOs, and then there are some who are less willing. And so examples, I mean, the Indonesian Pemilu is obviously quite proactive in engaging and interacting. So is the Comelec in the Philippines, I believe. But also, for instance, in Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission was quite eager to get information that was gathered by citizen groups and then make use of it. So, off the top of my head, I can't think of a bad example, and probably I shouldn't point them out anyway. But yeah, so these are positive examples, and I always wonder what makes the election commission more likely to engage. And some factor, I think, is if there is a generational change in the members. So a lot of African countries coming from conflict history have a total change of personnel, and then you have a young generation who have grown up in the digital era, who are more attuned to universal human rights and integrity standards, and they might be more eager. Or you may have examples where the election commissioners even come from civil society. So the Philippines are one example. Commissioner Louis came from a civil society organization.
Also a member of Open Government Partnership, and in one of the founding structures of the OGP is that we create co-creation with the government. It means co-planning, co-implementation, and also co-evaluation for everything. And you mentioned some of the necessary that some of the needs to create that kind of co-creations, like earlier you said, the change of the personnel and the inclusion of the younger generation, and perhaps technologies. And talking about technologies, do you think it is talking about election technology? Do you think has somehow promoting transparency itself and electoral integrity?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and I've asked myself that quite a few times. Also, of course, in general, yes, technology is necessary for leveraging the power of open data. So you do actually need some kind of app or an internet platform that brings together the citizens and the data and the NGO and ideally the EMB. So it's kind of like a meeting place. So yes, for that we need technology, and we need, maybe more importantly, a tech-savvy citizenry. So there are, for instance, a lot of crowd mapping websites that I have encountered. So a crowd mapping site is a website where citizens can submit their observations about what goes wrong on the election. Okay, and so there are a lot of these, and the vast majority remains empty essentially. So you could draw a line that looks at the number of reports that are submitted, and it stays at 0,0,0,0,0 for most of the organizations, most of the websites, and only very few manage to get reports. So the technology is there, but citizens don't use it. So, and one obstacle that there might be is just, of course, the internet penetration rate in the country, the digital divide, the online literacy, but also I think technology has to incorporate some kind of incentives for citizens to stay engaged. I would like to give you one example, not from elections, but from different sort of applications. So there is this website called seeclickfix.com. It is a crowd mapping site, and it allows citizens to submit reports about public utilities. So if there's a pothole, if the electricity isn't running, if there is a water leak, if the traffic light doesn't work, this kind of stuff.
Is it in Australia?
It's in many different countries, usually at the city level. So in the US, for instance, there are many cities that have such a see-click-fix website. And again, a lot of them remain unused, but the ones that are used by the citizens are the ones that incorporate a feedback loop. So if I'm the citizen, I submit a report, then I can follow up and see what has happened to my report. Yeah? And so let's transfer that to the field of elections. If I have a crowd mapping site like Reclaim Niger or the Russian Karta Narushini or others like Matamasa in Indonesia, if I submit a report saying, oh, there is election violence, there's intimidation, I want to see what has happened to my report. Has the NGO that is running the website forwarded this to the Election Commission? Has the Election Commission received the report? Have they done anything? For instance, send the police or investigate or something. And if I see that this is the follow-up to my report, then I am more likely to stay engaged. So research done by Frederick Sjoberg and Tiago Peixoto on the seeclickfix site has found that if there is such a feedback mechanism, people are more likely to submit a report again, and they stay engaged.
So that's one of kind of incentive.
Exactly. And I mean, the worst example of such a incident reporting system is the one that is intransparent. So not only are there no follow-up reports online, some cities in China, for instance, have a very sophisticated reporting online platform, but the citizen cannot see the reports, not the results, but they cannot see their own reports, so there is no map. And so that is the incentive structure that essentially disengages the citizens, and they are likely to not come back to the website.
Okay, thank you very much, Max, for your wonderful explanation about the electoral integrity reports, and also a lot of things about the access of information and also open data. We hope we can continue the discussion. Thank you again. I'm really bad.